Welcome to Marketing Magic. I'm the Amazing Zinder. Hello, today we're going to work on finding senior citizens, your baby boomer generations, and the reason behind us wanting to go after that group or that segment of the market is because there's a couple of popular things going on right now. Number one is the reverse mortgages. And we need to go in and we need to find all the senior citizens who's above 60 years old, who has equity in their home, preferably paid for, and then we can take the equity out of the house, refinance it with a reverse mortgage, so the senior citizen, instead of them paying a mortgage payment, believe it or not, the mortgage company pays them. Well, on top of that, we also can go in and try to find these senior citizens and try to help them out at the same time. Back in the 60s, back in the 70s, when these group of people were buying a home, they bought a home to stay, to live there for 30 years. And they were taught, pay off your mortgage. So here's a good classification of people to go after. Now, I don't know if you've experienced being with any senior citizens, but back in the 70s, when they built homes, they did not build them with specifics, such as when you pull up into the driveway, you walk into the house, there's the kitchen. Today's technology meets the senior citizens tremendously, but back then you would have to walk into the front door, go up a flight of steps to get to the kitchen. And now these seniors, they don't have the ability to carry lots of groceries. So on top of that, these seniors of 60, 70 years old, they really don't need to be living in a 4,000 square foot home. You know, when it's just them two empty nesters. You know, their kids have grown up, having kids, and now they have this abundance of real estate, big property they have to keep clean and everything else. So now what we want to do is find these senior citizens who are basically waiting for you to contact them, put them into a smaller garden home, maybe 1,600 to 2,000 square foot garden home, where everything is convenient for them for their way of living. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go to where it says multiple search option. We're going to come down to property characteristics. So we want to find single family residence. And then how do we find the seniors? Now, I kind of mentioned back in the 60s and the 70s, seniors would go in and buy a house and they would stay there. So the last sale price of we're looking at not the last sale price, but the last sale date of the property, we want to use the parameters back in the 70s. So we're going to go to like January 1, 1970 to December 31, 1979. And the reason I've used those particular parameters is because assuming that when they bought their home, they were about 35 years old at the time. Well, now we basically put 35 years in advance into the future from the time they bought the home, which now makes them 35 years later about around 65 to 70, 75 years old. So, and if based on these parameters, maybe you might not be at 65 years old yet, maybe they're in the late 50s, then we may want to go to 1960 to 1969. So you can always adjust those parameters, but that's the concept behind that. Now the big question is what happened if they sold the house back in 2003? Well, then that particular house would not fall within these particular guidelines because the last sale date of that property would be in 2003, not between 1970 and 1979. We also want to make sure that we choose owner occupied. Okay, so and the reason behind that is we want to make sure that the senior still receives the mail at the residence as well as the property address. So then if we want to also look at for a particular zip code, a particular area of town we can fill in, But what we're going to do now is come right over here and hit search. There we go, 9,651 properties that happens to find. And notice in this particular last sale date, what we can probably do is what we'll start off is by sorting the last sale date. We're going to go ahead and click the header. And it's now going to sort it in order of the earliest time, which was 1970. And what we're going to do now is this. I don't know if you've ever used the new whitepages.com, but we're going to come right over here to where it says Jesse Carr. It's bought it in 1970 for $10,000, Summerton, Alabama. We're going to pull up the property record report, and now we have a little link that takes you straight to whitepages.com, and it pops up a box saying it has not been scrubbed against the do not call list. Okay, so you're going to have to make sure they're not on the do not call. But notice as we pull this up, I want to recognize the fact that when White Pages came up, it pulled up her address, but notice she's over 65 years old. So this is a perfect for the reverse mortgage candidate, as well as maybe putting her in a newer home. Then we can do our due diligence, pull up the property evaluation report, make a determination on the value of the property. Notice she bought it for $10,000. The house is now assessed at $46,000. Now go do some marketing magic on your own.